her dentist and says she should have had the right to know he was infected. Do you want to know if your doctor or dentist is HIV positive? Should healthcare workers have the right to know the same about you? Town Hall investigates the risk of doctor-patient AIDS transmission and the controversy over mandatory AIDS testing next week.
Any other impacts of the full moon from the proponents here? Anything else it does? Right there.
My name is Beth Saul, and I'm a librarian. For many years, I worked for the Multnomah County Library downtown, and it seemed that all the odd incidents that were ever going to happen would always happen during the full moon, and the staff there generally can tell a full moon also, whether there's clouds up there or not. And speaking of clouds, my husband's uncle told me one time several years ago that there's always a clear sky during the full moon. And I said, ah, come on. But I kind of paid attention for several years, and there was only about 4 or 5 times that it hasn't been clear.
Clarence, there's the weather. You had your hand up. Effects of the full moon.
Oh, I've been on a book tour, and every place I've gone.
So identify yourself, please.
My name is Sandra Derrickson Moore, and I've done a lot of reporting in the mental health field and also a lot of reporting in parapsychology fields. And among psychics...
What's parapsychology?
Oh, it's anything that's outside the normal senses, basically. Most people think of ESP and things like that as being identified with parapsychology.
Is that right to think of that?
Yeah, I think so. Anything that's outside the
ESP being
senses.
extrasensory perception.
A lot of it is merging together now. I worked with a psychologist named Tenny Hale for years who found that she did a lot of research up at the Hill with William Sheldon, an MD, and we were all talking about serotonin here in this corner. I think light has something to do with it. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter in the brain, I think, right? I think that has something to do with it. There's also...
To do with what?
To do with the strange things. Basically, I think it's a condition of being overjuiced, and anybody who knows anything about color...
Overjuiced?
Overjuiced,
okay.
yeah, is what we lay people call it. There's a system that I think science and psychics, I'm engaged in MD, and I've been telling him we're going to be in the same field by the end of this decade, but there's something called Kundalini energy that acupuncture allegedly hooks into. That's why acupuncture works. It works with this system in the body, and there are several MDs studying it now. And I think it definitely has an effect on that kind of system. It has an effect on sexual drives, on your creative juices in general. Anybody who knows anything about color, red is generally associated with passion or drive or energy. And I've done a lot of town halls, as you know, and I think I'm seeing more red here today than I usually see. So there's something about that people have this drive to do one thing or another. As LaFay said, if their drives are in a higher level, they're out to do that. If the cats are in a lower level.
Right behind you. I mean, it was turning, you were checking yourself out in red, and she talked about drives to do different things. Would you identify yourself, please?
I'm Jerry Smith.
And Jerry, what is it that you do that's of interest tonight?
I've got a part-time hobby of like following up on werewolves and stuff like that.
Now, you believe in werewolves?
Well, somewhat.
Somewhat?
Yeah, I do believe there is some form of change. Either not physical, but maybe mentally.
Now, the classic form of the werewolf, as I said in the beginning of the program, was, you've seen the movies, the hair comes out, the teeth grow down, and they become a wolf. Do you believe in that kind of a werewolf?
Well, maybe in some instances related to, like, maybe satanic beliefs, you know. Because a werewolf, maybe, you know, related to the occult, it could change.
You actually go out looking for werewolves?
Well, we get like calls from different people.
How come you get calls? Why do they call you?
Well, we at school and stuff. People know that we do this kind of stuff.
So the word gets around. This is word of mouth.
We don't, send out flyers and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Get a lot of flack from somebody,
So if you get a call, say if I call you after the night of the full moon and say I think I've been hounded by a werewolf, what do you do?
Well, we ask them different questions and stuff, like what did it look like and what happened and stuff like that. And if it's really bad, we might go out there and take a look around.
You take a look around with a camera, or you?
Yeah, I have my friend here, John.
John?
I'm John Paragus, and I'm with Jerry Smith. We've known each other for a number of years now, since the 4th grade, and we just got interested in this subject.
We're looking for these werewolves. Are you armed? Do you arm yourselves?
Yes,
well, sort of.
We have different types of equipment.
Go ahead. What do you have?
Well, like, we've read up on it, like folklore and stuff. Like, a werewolf is supposedly hooked to Satan, so we do have, like, a cross with us.
What about the other thing, if I recall, like from Lon Chaney Jr., was a silver bullet, right?
Yes, that's just folklore, again, Because any bullet will kill anything.
Okay, but are you armed? You actually have? I mean, I have a gun with you.
Well,
You do this?
Well, not normally we
Do you?
don't.
Well, I just brought an example of knife because in folklore it was thought to believe that if you stab a werewolf 3 times in the forehead, it would change them back into a human form.
You better get in those stabs pretty quick, I'd say, huh?
Yeah. Well, we
You
did have
ever seen one?
Well, we've seen like we've been called up. This lady called us up. We went there, and there's a wild dog loose. You know, it's foaming at the mouth and stuff. It's really acting wild and stuff. But then again, it was a rabid dog. It turned out to be.
Yeah. You've never actually seen a werewolf?
Not actually. We have people call us and told us they've seen it.
You believe them?
Sometimes we do believe them, because you know it could happen.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. That's an interesting viewpoint from, as I say, when we started the program with werewolves, and there we go. You, sir, in the back.
Yes, my name's David Owen. I'm an electrophotographer and a metaphysicist, and I've been studying this subject of electrical fields effects, and this month's Omni magazine has some excellent research by some of the top doctors and other people, one in Spain and some other areas of study, that very small electrical changes in our energy fields will affect us, and it is a proven factor. And if the skeptics want statistics besides what the other lady said, there was a study done in Miami by the police department in correlation with emergency and everything else on murder rate, and the correlations were exactly like everyone has said.
That's the Dade County study?
The Dade County study, yes, definitely showed an increase in the werewolf or the animal self coming out of these people, and these fits of anger and brought to a peak through not so much as the moon, but it just took them over that brink, kind of fired that last synapse that made them want to do an animal thing.
All right, before we turn to the skeptics, I just want to ask this question. Now, we've heard lots of testimony here to the effects of the moon on people, plants, etc. Why? Why? What causes this? From the people who believe. Why? What is it? Right there, you, sir.
Well, in my opinion, and from all I've read, it's that we are an electromagnetic being filled with water and electricity and magnetism and who knows what else. And the electricity increases in the atmosphere, which from the earth and the atmosphere, and so we're affected in a full moon.
So you say it's electrical. What about any other theories on it? Why is it? What about, you mentioned before, back to you, please. Re-identify yourself, please.
Carol McMains.
And Carol, you're
I was talking about gravity pull.
Gravity pull from the full moon.
Yes.
And your theory would be that it, as I recall, that there is a greater gravity during the full moon, a greater pull, and it pulls on the human body, and that will cause behavioral changes.
Well,
is that
because,
correct?
again, it's connected. The gravity pull does things to the water on the Earth, and we are so much water.
That is, we physically are so much water, you mean?
And one more thing, what we're really talking about is the full moon having an effect on our emotional sensitivity, and that's really all we're talking about. Is the emotional sensitivity, and again, that can be positive or that can be negative depending on how balanced or unbalanced we are individually.
Well, there's been talk about more than that. There's been talk about birth rates going up.
Same thing.
And that, well, of course, you're saying that could be, I guess, an emotional factor involved in giving birth. Any other theories on why the full moon? Right there.
Not so much
Identify
why.
yourself, please.
Carol Elizabeth Jones. I'm a believer. And I think that because I'm a believer, it works. I mean, if you believe in something, if you believe you're more creative, if you believe you're more in touch with your emotions and spiritually, as was mentioned earlier, if you believe it, that's part of it right there. And I like believing it, so I do.
So, well, what way do you believe? When the full moon is out, do you get nastier? Do you call television stations and complain?
It wasn't me.
Now, how does it affect you in your view?
I feel I can stay up later. I want to stay up later. I'm more alert. That might be a time when I might write or really enjoy some music. I mean, more than at another time. And I can't say if that's because I believe it or because it really happens, but it happens for me.
Our Town Hall Classic, Moon Madness, will continue after this.
With the benefit of public participation, we recently completed our new least cost energy plan. Because Oregon's electricity supplies are already tight, our plan calls for the use of all of our existing power sources, including the Trojan plant, over the next few years. But in addition, to meet our customers' growing needs, we'll expand our energy efficiency programs. We'll develop new power sources, including renewable resources like geothermal and wind. And we'll work with local employers to develop cogeneration facilities. These new energy sources, combined with increased energy efficiency, will allow us to phase out the Trojan nuclear plant in 4 years in an orderly manner while saving costs. We believe this responsible plan will provide our customers with reliable energy at the lowest cost. For more information, please call us.
First, getting rid of triple trailers seemed like a good idea. The more I think about it, we'd need a lot more trucks just to do the same job. And while the triples may scare me, the records show they're actually safer than the other trucks. So when it comes right down to it, I guess I'd rather live with a few triples than a lot more trucks. Imagine all that extra traffic and pollution, the accidents. Do we really want more trucks on the road?
No on Measure 4.
Ladies and gentlemen, feast your eyes on the elegant new J30. A classic luxury sedan in an infinity kind of way. A driver's car with 2 airbags, soft leather appointments, and tasty wood. Hey, pal, don't you even think about it. The new J30 from Infinity.
I'd like to turn this gentleman in front of me here and ask if you would identify yourself.
My name is Jeff Mayhew, and I'm a consultant for Northwest Skeptics.
And Jeff, what is Northwest Skeptics?
It's kind of self-explanatory. It's a group of people who are skeptical about a number of popular beliefs, which we believe are simply not verified by...
What are some of those, Jeff, just to give our audience a feel for it?
Well, let's see, I'll make a few enemies here. Astrology, Kirlian photography, a lot of ESP.
What's Kirlian photography?
Kirlian photography is a...
That's you in the back, isn't it?
It's the gentleman in the back.
Okay, right, all right.
Electrophotography.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then you're basically, the function of your organization is to counter these beliefs, to take the other side.
To disseminate information, to balance the predominance of information that seems to be pro.
And one of the beliefs we've heard tonight is, as I said to you, Jeff, from my own just meanderings around this city in the last week, seems to be pretty widely held.
That's right.
Is that the full moon has a profound impact on us. What do you say to that?
Well, I think that probably the story that I have to tell is probably a bigger mystery than the story that a lot of people here have to tell, and that is simply that I have looked at the studies, and I think I've looked at most of the studies, and I have them here with me. I have a bibliography of over 87 entries dealing with the subject. I've read some 50-odd studies in the last 2 weeks, and if you look, a number of people have cited studies where they say, yes, there is a correlation. There are studies that show a correlation, but what they don't tell you, what no one has told you yet, is that if you look at all of the studies that show correlations, they are all over the map. They don't show bulges around the full moon. They show bulges, some of them show bulges around the full moon, some of them show bulges for example, for birth rates. Menaker and Menaker, 1959. Higher birth rates for the 2 weeks following the full moon. That's marvelous. Unfortunately, in 1963, Menaker, one of the Menakers, did another study in which they showed there were higher birth rates for the 2 weeks centered on the full moon. So they've shifted back a week. Then you look at Osley, Somerville, and Borscht, which was another study done in the 60s, and they find that there are higher birth rates for the 2 weeks preceding the full moon. Now, if you start thinking about that, you realize...
So you're saying you've got studies that go any way you want?
There are, yeah, I have...
And so if you believe in this particular one, that's the one you pull out?
That's right, and it's been done. I think you've read a book called Full Moons by Paul Katsev, which talks about a number of those studies, and he consistently distorts them. He consistently says, well, so-and-so showed a correlation, so-and-so showed a correlation, so-and-so showed a correlation. He doesn't tell what the correlations are. So you think, well, gosh, there's all these studies that show a correlation, but they don't show the correlation that people expect. All the people here tonight have been talking about very obvious things. They haven't been talking about something that takes sophisticated statistical analysis to show. They're talking about something that any officer on the street, any bartender, any receptionist can see without doing anything other than a very casual observation of what's going on. But that's not what comes out in the studies. That's what I find so strange. The studies are all over the map.
All right, then I bring it to you then. If the studies are all over the map, then why does Stan Peters, who's sitting right here, who's been a policeman for 20 years, why is Stan so firmly convinced, as he said, and from talking to his fellow officers, that they have more problems on the nights of the full moon? How do you explain that?
I'd like to point out that I do not doubt the sincerity of anybody here. I'm not saying these people are liars. What I am saying is that there are a number of factors that get folded into a person's cognitive experience of something like this. One of them is simply the fact that if you go out on the streets expecting it, you will find that it comes true. If you read your
something like what this woman just said here a minute ago?
I think the woman here is probably closer than anyone else in terms of speculating on the causes. And frankly, I think that you should probably verify the phenomenon before you start speculating on the causes. But I think she's pretty much on target. And that is that subjectively, if you look at the phenomenon expecting it to happen, you're going to find a correlation. If you read your horoscope in the morning, and it says you're going to meet a strange person today, and you go out in the street, and it just so happens you're walking down the street, and somebody with a funny-looking hat says hi, you're going to remember that, because this morning you read a horoscope that said that might happen. But tomorrow, when you don't have that horoscope, you might meet another funny-looking person. You won't remember it. Selective memory, selective recall. There are some other factors that are not internal. For example, there's a phenomenon called weekly cycling, and that is that studies have shown that homicides and various other forms of criminal activity are not randomly distributed throughout the weeks. They peak between, at least in a study done in Houston by a man named Alex Picorni, they peak between 11 and 12 on weekdays, and in his study, over 50% of the homicides occurred on weekends. And so it just so happens that a synodic month, the lunar phase month, is very close to a calendar month of 4 weeks. And the weekly cycling behavior can get misconstrued and come into not only what people experience subjectively, but also studies that have been done.
Jeff, thank you for those insights on where maybe some of the faith here is coming from. And I'm going to turn around here and ask if you would identify yourself.
I'm Jan Dabrowski. I'm the staff astronomer and planetarium director at OMSI.
I suppose that it's probably safe to say that you probably know as much about the moon from that standpoint as anybody we're apt to see here. Is that correct?
As an astronomical body, right.
Mm-hmm. Well, what we've heard here tonight, that maybe we've heard about the pull of the moon, the electrical energy from the moon. Comment on that, please.
I'd like to. That's the big problem with the possible causes. Is it tidal? Is it electromagnetic? The moon, as an astronomical body, basically has no magnetic field. The sun, which is there every day, whether it's cloudy or not, is there, does create an electrical effect on the Earth simply by the shining of its light on the upper atmosphere, by the introduction of the solar wind, charged atomic particles, electrically charged particles from the sun that hit us every day. And nobody's talking about sun madness.
Now this is, you're countering, there was a gentleman here who talked about the electrical energy at the time of the full moon. You're saying no such thing.
The problem is, what's the cause? If the moon is doing it, it shouldn't, because for everything we know about the moon, it shouldn't be a channeling agent from the sun. Why doesn't, and since the light we get from the moon is strictly reflected sunlight, why aren't we getting an effect from the sun directly? Why does it have to pass through the moon before it has an effect, a lunar effect on us? The other problem that I see with the tides is, granted, we know that tides are water tides, because that's what we're interested in if we're going fishing or sailing or going down to the beach. But there are land tides also. The moon doesn't just selectively pull on the water, which is where the problem is, at least in my understanding of what the cause is inside the human body. The moon pulls on everything on the Earth. The fact that the water tides are higher than the land tides is just a fact caused by the water can move easier and is fluid, whereas the land doesn't. But land tides, when the moon goes over and we have a tide, the land tide is like 6 inches.
What is a land tide?
The land goes up, it rises. So if we are being...
When does it do this? During the full moon?
No, it'll do it during the time that the moon passes over your location. At the time when you would be having, let's say, a high tide if you're on the coast, then you'd be having a high land tide also, because the Earth will respond.
And this is a definite pull now.
Right.
But what the point I'm making is that pull associated with whether the moon is full or narrow, or the proximity of the moon to the Earth?
Tides are not... well, we get tides because the moon is close to the Earth.
Close, so it's distance, not fullness. Is that correct?
Partly, because at the times of the full moon and at the time of the new moon, which is another point in the tidal cause, we can have higher than normal high tides and lower than normal low tides. But there's also a problem in that it's not just connected to it being full, because that's when it's lined up with the sun, and new when it's lined up with the sun as well. But you also have the moon changing distance, which is not in sync with the phases. So if you have an effect that can change the tides by as much as 30%, which is what happens because the moon can move in and out, then you can have high tides occurring that are just as high several days before you actually have your full moon, or several days after,
so
depending
upon the time. You're saying that the pull of the moon is not necessarily related to the fullness
of the
moon.
That's right.
Now, also, let me ask you about the pull of the moon. Is it possible, let's take proximity instead of fullness, if the moon is pulling like this on the Earth, that it can raise the Earth 6 inches, and we know what it can do to tides, is it possible that because we are mostly water, that the moon could have some effect on us with that pull?
Well, then everything in us is going to be raised. You see?
So we're all going to at the same time.
Right. So we're actually going to feel a little bit lighter in a sense. But
how much lighter?
Okay. Hair or fingernail. And the loss
hair or a fingernail?
Yeah. Hair your fingernail, and the loss of that weight is, getting into the scale of how much lighter you're going to feel during the time of, let's say, because of the tide.
Then the other point you're making is that if our whole body's being pulled together, that it shouldn't make any changes in us because everything's moving in the same direction.
Yeah.
And ever so faintly.
Right. But my main problem with the tidal hypothesis is that why isn't there a new moon effect? Because we have the high tides and low tides again at new moon. And if it is a tidal effect, which which is again part of the problem you were bringing up before, that we should be seeing this twice a month during the lunar month, not just the full moon, but it should be just as prominent at new moon. And so everybody should be able to tell when a new moon is because of the activity at the TV station receptionists or in the police stations. What's the cause? Is it the light? Is it the gravitational pull? This is where I have a problem with the theory of it being tidal or electromagnetic. The data doesn't seem to be there that indicates the effect is there.
Right there. Would you identify yourself, please?
I'm Carl Bachler from PSU Physics Department. I'd like to agree with the analysis of these two men that I know of no credible mechanism by which the effects could be accomplished that most of these people cite. I'll take the exception to the man who has the fighting cats. That sounds reasonable.
Because of the light.
Because of the light, and they can be out at night. And there can be, you can think of some effects if you're a clam digger or so on. Sure, your life might be governed by the phases of the moon. But these are understandable, credible effects. When you talk about tides, you're talking about gravity. The theory of gravity that causes tides has been well understood for 300 years. There have been no surprises since. NASA's rockets fly right on the button according to Newton's laws. Einstein's theories are very, very unimportant, irrelevant corrections. The tides just can't do it, and if they would, there would be this other effect. New moons would be even slightly more than full moons. What about when we talk about electromagnetism? Electromagnetism is one of the best understood laws in physics. If it is atmospheric electricity, yes, there is a lot of atmospheric electricity and it changes, but we could correlate this more directly, and of course you do not feel the atmospheric field when you are indoors.
How about the medical end of it? Would you identify yourself, please?
I'm Dr. Barbara Wagner. I'm in the emergency department at Portland Adventist Medical Center.
Dr. Wagner, what about, we heard earlier in the program some discussion that the birth rate zooms up during the full moon. Your experience?
We don't really see the birth rate in the emergency room. We have a very active OB department that takes them directly. We see mostly the trauma and the interfamily conflicts and the results of those, as well as emotional uproars that come through the emergency department.
And what do you think? Full moon?
Well, when I first thought about it, which is many years ago, I thought gut-wise that it was definitely related. And talking to the nurses, it always seemed to be a highly emotional time when it was the full moon. Going to work, I'd see a full moon and I'd say, this is going to be a rough night. But looking at it with data, trying to get hard data, being a little more pragmatic, I can't support it. I've gone through our trauma registry and tried to relate the trauma admissions of the patients over the past year. There's no correlation at all. And in fact, on full moon, it seemed that we had less trauma patients than without the full moon. I think there's a lot more things to consider. The length of the day, the light of the day, the temperature, the activity of the people in the area.
Hot weather, the dog days.
That's right. I think that on a hot Saturday or Friday night, I'm going to expect much more trauma than if it's just full moon.
Thank you. Right there.
I'm Steve Carey. I teach in the philosophy department at Portland Community College. To follow up on a point that a couple of people have made, this gentleman over here mentioned several studies which showed no correlation between the moon and birth and number of births. There is one fairly recent study which actually tried to look at it on a day-by-day basis. In other words, correlate births with the day of the full moon and then look at every other day in the lunar cycle. It showed no correlation at all. Now, the interesting thing about this was done over a 4-year period, and people working in the hospital where the study was done at the time felt that there was a correlation. So I think we have very clear evidence here of no correlation, yet we have people seeing the correlation. I think one last point, too. The gentleman from the police department earlier mentioned that, or bartenders, for example, even when they don't know there's a full moon, they'll see increased activity.
He said that very clearly. He said even if it's been cloudy for 30 days, they
I
could
was
tell.
thinking about that. Suppose you work in a profession where you think the moon has an effect on your clientele. I suspect that you're probably going to know when the full moon is going to be.
I think what we're hearing here from the skeptics to all of you is that you believe what you want to believe.
Our Town Hall Classic Moon Madness will continue after this.
Sometimes it seems problems get a little bit harder to solve every day. We look for solutions, but nothing is getting done. So we blame the politicians. And the politicians blame the special interests. Gridlock. And in the end, those of us in the middle suffer. But recently, the politicians listened to us and did something that can help us all. They voted for a bill that will control cable rates, the Cable Consumer Protection Act, something we've needed for a long time, because we all know cable rates are out of control. With continued support from your senator, the Cable Protection Act can soon become law, and rates will be controlled. And that's why the cable special interests are making a last-ditch effort to defeat the cable bill. But don't let them confuse the facts. It's really quite simple. The cable companies want you to pay more. Call your senators and tell them to keep supporting the Cable Consumer Protection Act, because out-of-control cable rates are one problem we can solve.
So many stories down, I was going down head first.
They never should have made it alive, but they did.
You're just scared.
Some incredible rescues and the people that were saved on the next Open.
Monday at 4 on Channel 2.
Tonight,
I can't let her watch me die.
an episode you can't miss.
We don't know how much time he has left.
I love you.
Marry me, Jesse.
Life goes on. Then, bad news baseball from America's true minor leaguers. It's hats off to America's funniest home videos.
Tonight on KATU Channel 2.
Okay, let's throw it open. Now we've heard both sides. Let's have it right there. You, sir. Identify yourself, please.
Yes, my name is Joel Kasperzak, and I'm a firefighter paramedic with the Portland Fire Bureau. Initially, I had the same feelings as Dr. Wagner. If somebody would have asked me several weeks ago, a month ago, I would have probably said, sure, there's some effect of the moon, and on full moon nights, it's wild and crazy things happen. Sitting down and looking at it critically and honestly, over the years, I can't see any correlation. Ever since being in EMS or emergency services, I've been told, the subjects come up many times from the very beginning, is, oh, full moon tonight, we're going to have a busy night. We're going to have a lot of assaults. And looking back on it, some nights were quiet on full moons, other nights were busy. Granted, this is one paramedic talking from a certain area that I was working at the time, but I don't see any direct increase in unusual calls or aggressive behavior. I think a more significant factor now working downtown in Corey is probably at the beginning of the month when the checks come in. There is definite increase on assaults and aggressive behavior.
All right. All you people have been told that you're mistaken. How do you want to respond to that? Right there.
My name is Dee Sawyer, and I work for Channel 8, KGW. I have to differ with some of these people for the simple reason that we have several different types of calls that come into the studio. However, most of you are putting a signification on strictly a full moon. And I find that most of the calls that are disturbed or angry about something, et cetera, will start coming in prior to the full moon. I'd say maybe 2-3 days prior to that.
But you're still relating it to the full moon.
Exactly. But I'm saying that it doesn't necessarily have to be right on the full moon.
But you still see a cause and effect relationship.
You bet I
with
do.
the timing.
You bet I do. For this reason I sound so definite is because we get extremely irate calls.
Back to you, Jeff Mayhew, skeptic.
I'd like to point out an important difference between anecdotal evidence, as in people giving their stories, and scientific evidence, and that is that I have the studies here with me. I can show them to people. We can look at the data. We can go and verify the data. And in the case of anecdotal evidence, all I can do is take someone's word for it.
Right there.
Dr. Ron Schmidtke. I'm a practicing veterinarian here in Portland, and I tried to look at this from 3 different aspects. Exotic animals, which don't have learned mores, some of our companion pets, and also our domestic pets. In talking to friends of mine that are zoo veterinarians, they felt that the only thing that they saw was a general restlessness in the animals. But as far as things like the lemmings returning to the sea and the buzzards to Hinckley, Ohio, and the swallows to Capistrano, there was no phase of the moon that influenced it. It was more of a date-related thing. In our own practice, I look back at the last 100 emergencies that we did. In our small animal emergencies were about 39% under a full moon. And this I would expect, because of what Dr. Perry has already said, because of the light. In looking at the equine part of our practice, it was 23%, which would end up almost right on the normal expected 25. These animals are pretty well confined to barns, etc., and so would have to be influenced by natural phenomena such as disease. So although I've worked a lot of emergency duty and would have normally agreed with the first part of this program, expecting these animals to be sicker and more upset, I have to say that after the small amount of searching I've done, I've completely reversed my role.
You're a skeptic?
I'm now a skeptic.
Right there.
I think it all...
And you again are?
I'm Sandra Derrickson Moore, and I go along with this man after looking at some of the studies. The gentleman here that's a skeptic, I found one about bleeding crisis, but when I got to the thing, it said that most of them happen between the third and first phases of the moon, and I would expect that.
What happens in?
Bleeding crises,
What's
a doctor
bleeding
said.
crisis?
And in surgery, more people were returned to surgery. He did say that nearly all attacks of bleeding ulcers came when the moon was full. I think there's so many factors here that is just one of them. She was pointing out, she was nodding her head and saying, new moon, yes, there's something that happens there too. I don't think it's just one phenomena that happens. I think it is something that we have to figure in with everything else, whether it's summertime, wintertime. And I agree that more serious studies are needed to pinpoint a point of time. You know, is it going to be 3 days before, 3 days after, 1 week when the moon is full? People even differ about when the moon is full. We found that just before the show, that people we're calling out different opinions as to when the moon is full. Something obviously happens, and I don't agree with some scientists who think anecdotal is a dirty word. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of practical common sense out there too. But
back to you, Jeff.
I think that a common reaction of people who believe in a number of beliefs that skeptics such as me don't happen to believe in, when you confront them with the evidence, a very common tactic is to make the phenomena more complex, to say no longer, as in the beginning of the program, oh yeah, there's a correlation with a full moon.
You're saying that you think she's backing down a little?
I think it's a retreat response. I think what happens is that people will say, oh, well, it's not necessarily just that. It may be that there's a correlation between weather factors and the full moon. And if you then show them the data that's been done by Picorni, who has looked at weather factors, you will...
I turned the study in at the beginning of the show and said that this was just one of many factors. In this person here, it's like saying that sun sign astrology is all of astrology. There are hundreds of thousands of correlations. And sun sign astrology is like 18th century medicine. It's just very basic.
Jeff, I have a question for you. Running down here now, and I want to ask you this. You're outnumbered here. There's no question about it.
It's not surprising.
And when you got in the streets, you're going to be outnumbered, aren't you?
Right.
I'm going to ask you this. For all these people who you probably aren't persuading at all, is there any harm in them believing? If they believe the full moon affects us, that it's different, if the receptionists here believe that people are angrier in those nights, if Stan Peters believes that the police have more problems, is there any harm in that?
I think that you have to, first of all, you have to separate the issue of whether or not there is harm from the issue of whether or not the belief is valid or not. Okay, well, we've discussed whether or not it's valid, and I think there's not much evidence for it. As to whether or not there's any harm, there's two kinds of harm that you can get from such a belief. One of them is innate harm in the belief, such as, for example, psychic healing. If somebody forgoes conventional medical treatment for cancer to go get psychic surgery in the Philippines and loses it because of that. The other kind of harm, which is a much more subtle form of harm, is that if a belief is promoted which is not does not correspond to the scientific evidence, then when someone like me comes along and I state my opinion, those people who have been weaned on one side of the issue are much more likely to be hostile to it. And in that sense, I believe that when the belief is widely spread in an incredulous fashion, that it can have a harmful effect on the relationship of people with the scientific community.
People versus people. Yeah. Stan Peters, back to you.
Jack, there's a difference between a person sitting at a desk in a nice room studying psychosis and professional theories, etc. You know, then cops and bartenders and people answering the desk, you know, there's a difference between that opinion and our opinion. Our opinion is valid when it comes to that particular aspect of it. Now, I'd like to see some statistics based upon a full moon area as far as human...
He'd like to see some
human behavior. Too. I'm not talking about childbirth. I'm not talking about the effects.
Suicide.
But I didn't see anything tonight presented. You got a lot of theories and a lot of opinions that's going to go out.
I was going to make some charts and I couldn't bring them up on the show. I can show them to you after the show.
Well, but I'm only going by personal experience over 22 years as a police officer that people do act different on a full moon, and there's no question about that. They are more aggressive, they are more argumentative, and they're more assaultive, and everything about it.
Is it a full moon tonight, Stan? You're coming on pretty strong.
Absolutely.
It's a full moon tonight. All right. Jeff, go ahead.
I'd like to point out that it's not a very relevant tactic in a debate situation to attack a person's position rather than the evidence, the issues at hand.
Give back the evidence. In fact, I say we let Stan open. Why don't you close and go ahead and state your case to close out the program, if you will.
Well, once again, just to recap, I think that the phenomena that people are relating, if we take what these people are saying at face value, it is not a subtle phenomenon. It's a strong one. And if you look at the scientific evidence, what you see are a lot of studies that show no correlation and a lot of studies that show correlation all over the map. And I think he's making a change here of some kind.
The time is running out, and I have concluded that I really don't think there's anything to this full moon stuff. I think I hear a live chicken, and I'm going to go out and get it, and I want to thank all of you people for tuning in, and good night.
KATU Channel 2 celebrates 30 years of broadcasting in the spirit of the Northwest.
I'm a big kid with pull-ups, wow! Big kid pants make me big now.
Introducing new Pull-Ups training pants for girls and boys with customized leakage protection right where girls need it. And new boy Pull-Ups are customized too. Now, more than ever, big kid confidence begins with Pull-Ups.
Mommy, wow! I'm a big kid now.
Hey, dude, it's not your clothes you need to change, it's your pencils. Yikes! Yikes are the only pencils as unique as you. Yikes are pencils and erasers with outrageous shapes and colors that go straight to the core. Because you can't look sharp with dull pencils.
Sorry, Dad. Yikes can't work miracles.
They write like other pencils, but they make you go, yikes!
It's kind of unbelievable that people in America are eating 40 pounds of sugar a year. I was told about it, first of all, by someone who was a nutritionist and said, Sherry, you've got to make some changes in your diet. I have equal, and I feel happier because I feel okay, it tastes good to me, it's just there, I use it, I like it. You got the sugar, you got the pink stuff, and you got the Equal.
Equal has the great taste of NutraSweet and no saccharin.
I choose Equal.
Good evening, I'm Phyllis Burke. Tonight on Channel 2 News at 11, the Republican convention begins in Houston tomorrow amid reports of an alleged U.S. plan to attack Iraq in order to boost
hatchback, four-door hatchback, or the sporty GT. Remember, 2.9% financing on any new Escort. But hurry, deals this good disappear fast. See your local Northwest Ford dealer today.
TV's top dogs paying their dues Monday at 6:30.
Next on the series premiere of Secret Service, a madman is after the president.
He needs to die. This man is living in a fantasy world, people, and he's going to live that fantasy out unless we stop him.
And a computer terrorist threatens to bring an entire city to its knees.
He said he could turn off all the city lights.
A computerized time bomb.
The entire city blacked out. We could have a national emergency on our hands.
Real life dramas based on actual cases. Secret Service next.
These stories are based on cases of the United States Secret Service. In this story, the president is Ronald Reagan. The place, New York City. Every presidential motorcade includes a vehicle called a cat car, full of agents trained to stop a terrorist attack. security sweep of the motorcade route had been conducted. Every attack possibility had been eliminated except one. The one you can never totally eliminate. The lone madman with a gun. And today in New York, that madman was waiting.
Wave your flag.
How are you?
Mr. President. Mr. President. Isn't that exciting? Oh, here, honey. Yeah, there's your flag. Oh, the camera. Somebody took the camera.
The goal of the Secret Service is to stop an assassin before he can make headlines. It is an enormous task made harder on days like this, when an assassin realizes he's within reach of his goal. I'm Steve Ford. Welcome to Secret Service.
Introducing new waterproof formula bathroom duck. The only multi-surface bathroom cleaner that waterproofs as it cleans to resist dirt buildup. Like water off a duck's back. Watch how dirty water just slides off the side, cleaned with bathroom duck. Its unique waterproofing formula resists dirt buildup to make cleaning easier. New bathroom duck. Nothing fights bathroom dirt like duck. From S.C. Johnson Wax.
Hey, I'm vain. Of course I'm vain. That's why I comb my hair the way I do. That's why I stay in shape.
To compete against men half your age takes a certain kind of power.
That's why I play like an animal.
The power of Power Stick.
I give it everything I have.
50% more wetness and odor fighters per stroke.
This works best for me. I don't want people going around saying, whew, that Connors, he's tough to be around.
Power Stick by Fabergé. Power that won't let you down.
And for women, there's triple action Lady Power Antiperspirant. Power that won't let you down.
The eyewitness video has become a powerful weapon in the war on crime. Eyewitness videos putting drunk drivers behind bars and catching thieves red-handed.
We'll just show that tape to the jury.
Eyewitness videos helping to stop the illegal killing of dolphins.
The video camera is to us what a cannon is on a warship.
Eyewitness videos making sure violent criminals get punished.
The videotape doesn't lie.
Eyewitness video series premiere tonight at 7, 8 Central on NBC.
Monday, President George Bush fighting for his political life talks with Tom Brokaw. And
I'm just outraged.
Barbara Bush speaks out. 2 exclusives on NBC Nightly News.
The name he was born with, it's not important. The name he chose is the Stalker. He was a hunter, a grim and threatening specter who thought he could prove his power by rewriting a nation's history.
Today were warm and friendly, a marked contrast to the business leaders he was addressing, who were looking for some governmental action on inflation and the high interest levels on federal loans. President Reagan reminded them
You
that America
miserable,
would not
stinking excuse for a human being. Your pompous face disgusts me. Mr. President, I am the Stalker. Your keepers of the gate cannot save you from my wrath. They will never stay. My judgment
hand.
Every piece of presidential mail is fluoroscoped and checked by bomb dogs before being opened by the White House staff.
Get me the Secret Service, please.
Hundreds of threats are made against the president each year. Every one is investigated to the fullest. This one was forwarded to Special Agent John Blade of the New York field office.
You're right. We'll be on the next shuttle. Tom, White House got a death threat postmarked New York City. They want us in Washington right away.
Another crazy?
Yep. Got right next to the man.
What?
The pictures to prove it. You get any matchup from the files?
Mm-hmm. One letter 4 months ago. Forwarded to us by a woman who writes a column for the New York Star.
Careful. Unlike you and your other sheep, I will strike with my judgment hand. He has a way with words, this guy.
Don't get your hopes up. Most likely a post office worker.
You run it through the computer anyway.
I'll fax you the results of the hair and fiber check on the paper.
Is there any chance we can get a type on this guy from the saliva on the stamp?
If he licked it. You know, I once had a guy made his dog lick the stamp.
Well, if it's a dog, you tell me the breed.
Yeah, I think the Knicks are gonna win tonight.
Just give me the change.
.35mm camera, high quality lens. Not the usual $2 jobs these guys have. Agents in the shots are all our guys, but nobody remembers seeing a man with this type of camera who wasn't press.
Your TV footage confirms that. Maybe we ought to have a talk with the press.
That'll go over big.
Got too close. That was a gun instead of a camera. This might be Dallas all over again.
If we catch the last shuttle, I can start reviewing the press passes first thing. Any other ideas?
Let's just hope he decides to write us again.
The one factor virtually every political assassin has in common is the act of stalking the victim. This time, the service knew they had an assassin on their hands.
Don't sleep. Your dogs of hell will never stay my judgment hand. Stalker.
Boy, this guy's got a problem.
No, we got the problem.
Yeah, but how close did he really get? I mean, how do we even know he took these pictures?
It's a good question. In this letter, he gives us the badge number of a New York cop who was stationed less than 20 feet from the president. 20 feet. So I want photo reconstructions of every recent presidential stop. I want files on anyone who's ever used the name or nickname Stalker. I want surveillance at the post offices where these letters were mailed, and I want a review of the president's upcoming agenda. This man is living in a fantasy world, people, and he's going to live that fantasy out unless we stop him. Okay? Let's go.
Let's get to it.
Agent Blade also requested a psychological profile. This highly classified process can determine a suspect's background and personality from tiny clues such as grammar and writing style.
There are numerous slang and pop culture references like judgment hand. That's from a recent hit record by a New York band called the Blanched Dubois. The actual line goes, "I'll sweep the kings from the land with my judgment hand."
So what does that mean? He's young, a rock fan?
We feel this is a white male, 20 to 40, holding down a menial job. Basically, he's unhappy with his lot in life and would like the notoriety this kind of achievement would give him.
Is there anything about this guy that would set him apart from the crowd?
He's probably single, heterosexual, though probably not active. And he displays a preference for blondes.
What the hell is it about blondes, anyway?
I'm only a psychologist and a brunette. Let's see. He's probably Catholic.
Why do you say that?
His writing style conforms to a type taught in parochial schools.
Now, is there any reason why he's taunting the service with his letters?
Well, you're a danger to him fulfilling his destiny.
Is there any chance he'd be happy to fulfill that destiny just on paper?
No. The letters are his way of energizing himself. I mean, he's working himself up for the final act.
Ticking bomb, so to speak.
Yes. And I'm afraid one that will go off soon.
Man's coming to New York again. Addressing a G7 banquet.
If the shrink's right, this could be when he explodes.
Sweep the king from the land. Sweep the king from the land!
All Agent Blade wanted was a face that would identify the demented mind he was struggling to read.
When you get the new car?
What car? You know what car? No, what car? Did you just get a raise? Would need a raise to buy that car.
What car?
The Toyota Tercel, starting at $71.98, it's the lowest priced two-door sedan you could buy.
What do you want? What makes you think I want something? You're my brother.
Could I borrow the car?
Tom? Not funny, Tom.
Tercel, today's answer to life's little hang-ups.
When the leaders of the church were as powerful as gods,
the ocean sea cannot be crossed.
He seduced a queen and commanded a crew of murderers and thieves on the most dangerous journey ever undertaken. Alexander Salkind presents Marlon Brando, Tom Selleck, George Corofas, Rachel Ward, Christopher Columbus, The Discovery, directed by John Glenn, and Alexander and Ilya Salkind production. Discover the World, August 21st. Rated PG-13.
Even when you're training for the gold, you want your white socks to stay white. And when socks pick up tough ground-in dirt like this, you need the cleaning power of Tide with Bleach Alternative. It whitens better than any other liquid, and there's no chlorine bleach, so it's safe for colors. Look, a dirty sock gets only this white with this other detergent, but the Tide Alternative gets it gleaming white. So, for superior performance, it's Liquid Tide with Bleach Alternative.
They're here, they're hungry, and they won't stop until they bring home the bacon. Kevin Bacon, Reba McEntire, Tremors are coming. NBC tonight.
It's a whole new NBC.
Monday, the Fresh Prince Blossom Hour is back. First, the Fresh Prince takes it on the chin from Cosby's Raven Simone. Then on an all-new Blossom, Dad and Vinny face off, and Joey has something to say about it.
No, maybe he just thought he had one.
He's got a point. That's his head.
Fresh Prince Blossom Hour, NBC Monday.
Hello, I'm Jay Leno. If you've signed up for the Republic Convention Triplecast, here's what you'll be seeing President Bush doing tonight. On the red channel, golf. On the white channel, horseshoes. And on the blue channel, water sports with Dan Quayle. And highlights of the Clinton-Gore bus tour. You don't have the Triplecast? Watch me on The Tonight Show.
Live from the convention on NBC next week.
When government gets too big, the little guy gets lost. It's like a shell game with a sprinkler salesman. The common man gets hosed. Senator Bill Powers is used to getting lost in the crowd and railroaded by bright, articulate politicians. America needs a presidential candidate to separate the forest from the trees, strip the foliage, and give the shaft to those who deserve it. Government's like a hemorrhoid. Let's shrink it before we can't sit down. Watch The Powers That Be, Monday at 9 on NBC.
As the hours before Reagan's visit ticked down, Blade coordinated his investigation with the agent in charge of the presidential detail. If the stalker could not be found, Blade had to be ready for the attack.
Can I talk you into a dummy motorcade? You know, have one of your guys stand in while we whisk him in the back door.
The man won't let the public think he can't walk around Manhattan without risking his life. Besides, I've practically doubled the manpower from the last visit here. We'll be ready for this guy.
Jerry, what's the public going to think with an army surrounding him? Why don't we chopper him to the roof? They can say his schedule's tight.
It's a political call, most of which will have nothing to do with security.
I'm getting a really bad feeling about this psycho.
I'll ask.
Thank you.
Even though Blade told the president his concerns, President Reagan vetoed both the dummy motorcade and the helicopter arrival. The New York field office was told of his decision. They conducted a full security sweep of the area. Manhole covers were welded shut. K-9 units inspected for explosives, and barricades were put up to contain the crowds. But Blade was still haunted by images no Secret Service agent ever forgets. Images of 1963 and that sunny day in Dallas.
Anything? Oh, he's here. I can feel it.
One minute to arrival. I need a situation report.
Yeah, we got about 600 public, 50 press. All contained. Come on in. That's the deal. Look, honey, can I call you back in 5? Okay.
I was in the front row face to face with your guardian hellhound construction worker.
Charlie, you get in here. Whom I could have killed. Next time I will kill you all. He fingered you.
Who?
Stalker.
No way. John, if I saw someone that wasn't right, I'd have grabbed him. You know that. Hey, if I'm picking pockets, New York is the last place I want a problem, right?
Yeah, well, maybe it didn't click at the time. Tommy, when you take him down to the psychologist, get her to put him under, walk him through the detail.
You gonna hypnotize me?
You got a problem with this?
No, of course not. Maybe she can help me quit smoking.
Now the presidential limo is arriving. What do you see?
Nothing. Just crowds.
What are they doing?
Looking at the man.
How do you feel?
Worried.
Look around. Who do you see looking at you?
No one. They're all watching the president.
Even though hypnosis is rarely used, the Secret Service will tap every resource at its disposal to prevent a presidential shooting. Enhancing Charlie's memory of the crowd, however, did not help Blade put a face to this psychopath.
Letters to newspapers. Letters to the man. Photographs. Forensics. Intelligence reports. Psychologists. Hypnotists. And we still have nothing.
Well, we haven't tried fortune tellers and voodoo dolls.
Annie, this mutt's gonna make history, and I'm gonna see his damn face forever.
Don't worry, John. We'll get a break. We deserve it.
You look beat. Why don't you go on home and get some sleep? Continue this insanity in the morning.
I'm gonna get him.
Strike with my judgment hand. How am I gonna stop you?
Blade knew the stalker was obsessed with newspaper articles on the president. He also knew the stalker's first letter had been to a New York columnist, so he decided to force a more direct form of communication.
Heard about your letters, need to know. Please call city desk. Stalker.
The telephone company rerouted calls from the newspaper to waiting Special Agent Annie Smythe, who posed as a reporter.
City column.
This is the stalker.
I've been waiting. Listen, I'm interested in what you have to say, but
He needs to die. I'm ready to deliver my judgment.
Hello? Hello?
They'll go on the trace, but we know the call was made in Manhattan.
That narrows it down to about 4 million. Now we're really getting somewhere.
You'll call again.
During his second call, the telephone company narrowed the calling area to 34th Street. But to find the exact phone, Blade needed the stalker to keep getting in touch.
City call him?
It's me.
I'm glad you called back. But how do I know you're for real?
You will when he's dead.
When? When does the judgment hand sweep the king away?
Sweep the king from the land.
Sweep the king from the land, right. I'd like to know why.
Soon you will.
Sorry. Maybe he'd talk longer if he knew I was a blonde.
We got him. Penn Station.
Copy. Get the boys together. If he calls again, he's ours. Thank you.
There was only one problem. There were over 200 payphones at Penn Station, and none of the stalker's calls had lasted more than 1 minute. The agents would have less than 60 seconds to identify and capture him.
All right, let's remember, this is a one-shot deal.
Green light all units, green light move in.
Yeah, listen, my editor's being a jerk. He needs proof that you're the stalker, or we can't do the story.
Yeah, man, like I said.
The stalker was arrested and found legally insane. After years in a state institution, he is currently petitioning the government to be released. In this cat and mouse game, numbers are hard to compile. Every day, Secret Service agents investigate threats to our security. Their successes go unnoticed. Their failures are remembered for decades. This show is about an agency in the United States government that most Americans know very little about. I do know, because for several years of my life, I was protected by the men and women of the United States Secret Service. The service has a mission to protect the nation's economy from counterfeit money, credit card fraud, and high-tech computer fraud. But for me, protecting the President of the United States was their most important mission. On 2 occasions, they saved my father's life. In the summer of 1975, my family had to come to terms with some of the harsher realities of the presidency. Within a 2-week span, there were 2 attempts on my father's life.
I then saw almost instantaneously very quick and very effective action by the Secret Service in taking care of the matter.
When I first heard the president was shot at, I was hearing it as my dad got shot at. And as much as you want to say, Dad, don't go out there, you can't. The President of the United States cannot be held hostage in the White House by an assassin. So we knew Dad's life was in the hands of the Secret Service. And we trusted them to bring him home alive every night. The Secret Service did that for us and the American people. Next on Secret Service, join us as agents save his city from a devastating blackout.
I'm home. There you guys are. Hiya, honey. Well, what's wrong? This is usually your favorite part of the day. Oh, bad headache. Let me help. I'll take the kids. You take a Motrin IB. The doctor says it's the same medicine as in prescription Motrin, but in non-prescription strength. Really works on my headaches. So go relax. I'll take care of Mr. Duck.
Motrin IB, the relief of Motrin in non-prescription strength.
July 1992. Oldsmobile goes further than any other car company to redefine quality. Further than the lab, further than the test track. The Oldsmobile Achieva went 100,000 miles against Honda Accord and Toyota Camry in a real-world test. Independent test results prove Achieva outperformed Accord and Camry in total cost, which includes maintenance, repair, and operating costs. Achieva, quality redefined. From the company that went far enough to prove it. Oldsmobile, the power of intelligent engineering.
You woke up with Katie Couric live from Barcelona for great Olympic golden moments. Monday, she's back with Brian Gumbel on America's favorite morning show Today. First, with breaking news. And the hottest stars of the day. Wake up to Today when Katie Couric returns to join Brian Gumbel beginning Monday.
If I even look at a sink full of dishes, my hands go crazy. But now there's new Palmolive Sensitive Skin for dishes. It's free of dyes and the harshest irritants. It's even dermatologist tested. New Palmolive Sensitive Skin. It's dishwashing made less irritating.
Now back pain doesn't have to ruin another night's sleep. Introducing Doan's PM. Doan starts with a unique pain reliever these brands don't have, then adds a second ingredient to help you sleep. Doan's PM for nighttime back pain.
Greed, arson, and death in the Florida Keys.
Electricity, the lifeblood of a modern American city. Lifeblood controlled by a computer. A computer that is dying.
Center control.
Yeah, it's security. What the hell's going on? We've lost power on the 4th floor.
Let me check it out. Oh, the computer says everything's okay.
Well, it ain't.
Shutting itself down.
Just as a human virus attacks cells one by one, so a computer virus destroys a machine's memory, each lost function creating greater and greater chaos. In 1986, the Computer Intrusion Act was passed by Congress to stop this form of economic espionage. The duty of enforcing this act is the responsibility of the United States Secret Service. Knowing they couldn't deal with the problem by themselves, the power company dispatched a corporate jet to pick up a Secret Service computer intrusion team.
Is asked often to handle this kind of situation? Or?
The team was headed up by Agent Rick Brzezinski. His partners were Agent Terry Halverson, a former all-pro football player just beginning his assignment with the elite team, and Ed Greenstone, professor of computer science at MIT, now under contract to the federal government.
Yeah, but give it a couple of hours and the whole city will be out.
So, just pull it and run. Reroute everything through another computer. Well, the backup is dependent on this computer for its coordinates when we switch it over. But we're afraid if we do switch, it'll spread the virus.
You may be right. Have you tried switching to manual controls?
Oh, yeah. Started tripping relays and almost blew the whole system. Show them on the map. Now, those dots are failed matrices. At first, we were just getting them in this sector here, but when we Move to manual at that substation there, the whole grid blew.
So far, we've been able to patch in some of the unaffected lines, but that can't go on forever.
Once this one burns out, why can't you just have the backup take over?
By then, the virus will have destroyed the memory.
Anyplace else.
At this rate, how long before the entire grid overloads? We calculate losing the downtime grid sometime this evening and the whole system by midnight.
The entire city blacked out. This could get real ugly.
In 1965, much of the eastern seaboard of the United States was blacked out for 15 hours. A few years later, when a similar blackout occurred, the criminal element was ready. The second blackout only lasted 10 hours. But during that time, there were riots, many deaths, and looting that topped $200 million. And that's not including the millions lost as a result of entire cities being shut down. Or the psychological effect on people trapped in the blackout terror. Agent Brzezinski knew a similar fate might now await this city.
We've heard back from everyone we've contacted. No one's losing data. Looks like it's just a power company.
Well, we'll see when the emergence of the downtown core sometime after sunset. We haven't issued a public warning. That'll just be looked at matters. But I have done rescue calls and I've done personal.
Check the hard copy files. Why is he in the computer? Harry? What the hell's going on? We're getting a message. Looking for someone trying to phone back because this information has disappeared. What was that?
He's wiped out the hard drive. All our records are gone.
He's erased the personnel file. Yeah, he knew we'd start there. He's covering his tracks. Okay, start going through the paper records fast. We're at the 4,000 points. Look, Terry, triggering the virus to randomly destruct. Plus, this cute message tells me that this guy likes to play games. Now, the first matrix that blew was in the plant's main building, right? So start with everyone who had access there.
Okay, I'm on it. I'll call you when I got something. Anything?
Maybe. It's starting to look more and more like someone with a beef against the power company. There still could be something else going on here, but we may not find out what it is until the power goes.
Okay, there's no virus anywhere in the mainframe. What about all the peripherals? We have checked all the modems and the phone lines. It's not there. And nobody's running it from outside.
What about
Oh, go on.
our printers? If somebody knew we access font changes from there instead of an internal program.
They could put the virus on the printer. Hello, Hanson. God, look at that thing. It must be hooked into 50 different program paths. Yeah, with destruct triggers everywhere. It'll fry every circuit in the mainframe unless the connections are unhooked in exactly the right order. Could someone please call Rick Brzezinski Police Headquarters? Tell them that downtown grid will definitely blow before we can disarm this. And tell them to narrow the search to top-level programmers. This isn't a virus. It's a logic bomb.
Computerized time bomb.
The investigation had taken on a frightening new dimension. As the countdown continued, the agents prayed they would find the genius behind the logic bomb before its creation destroyed the people and property of the city.
This may look like a typical night beer, and some typical friends enjoying a typical day in the park. But this is no typical day in the park. And this doesn't taste like a typical light beer, because this is cold filtered Miller Genuine Draft Light. So there's nothing typical about it.
Mark and my relationship goes way past business. I'm sure in a previous life he and I were twin brothers. Throughout the race, the driver and crew chief communicate. The driver complains about the car or brags about the car. It's the crew chief's job on pit stops to make whatever fixes he can to help the driver's predicament. Everyone has about the same access to equipment and technology, but the people who rub on it the most and think the most of it and think about it the most will end up winning the race.
A noble warrior advised, the art of protection springs from within. One must stay vigilant against one's unflagrant perspiration, lest one provoke a hostile response. Thus, the Norse ritual was right guard's footstep, an aromatic array of the freshest scents and maximum protection against disarming wetness, confirming the wisdom, the best defense is not to offend. Right guard's footstep. Anything less will be uncivilized.
Tonight, the series premiere of Eyewitness Video, the extraordinary show whose unforgettable images have made television history. It's unbelievable. The real-life drama. Hey, get out! The real-life rescues.
I could feel I was fading very fast.
And the real-life people who became all-American heroes.
If doing my job makes me a hero, then I guess that's what I am.
Eyewitness Video has even captured criminals who only thought no one was watching.
We'll just show that tape to the jury.
Tonight, Eyewitness the frightening reality of a hostage crisis.
We were all scared that he was going to shoot us, so we got down on our knees.
The shocking footage of a drunk driver losing control.
And I think we got a major accident here.
The hidden cruelty at the rodeo.
The videotape doesn't lie.
And the amazing story of one woman who was spared from a devastating disaster.
I lived through it, and I survived.
Real people, real stories.
History's being made right in front of your eyes.
The series premiere of Eyewitness Video, next.
Tuesday, a tragic accident changes Sam's life.
Your guardian angel.
Is it a miracle?
You can see him?
Oh, he's hard to miss in that monkey suit.
Or madness?
You're the one that needs the help.
You better watch it, Chico. I know the boss.
It's Quantum Leap's new night.
It's okay. He cannot hurt me.
Now Tuesday at 7 Central on NBC. Tuesday on Reasonable Doubts.
It's okay to kill people who are different than you.
They're laying out plans to exterminate us.
But the woman who will put them behind bars.
Murder in the first degree.
Could be the next to die. Marley Matlin. Mark Harmon. Reasonable Doubts. Now Tuesday at 9, 8 Central on NBC.
As night fell, Ed Greenstone continued struggling to disarm the logic bomb. And while he was no closer to discovering how the bomb worked, Terry Halverson finally got a line on his possible inventor.
So, what can you tell me about this Bernard Poston?
Bernard. Yes, he could do something like this.
Yeah, makes you say that.
He's that good.
There's a letter of resignation. Why'd he quit?
He didn't exactly quit. Someone filed a sexual harassment suit against him. He had no choice.
No choice.
Some people say it was political.
You have a current address for him?
No, if it's not there, we don't have it.
Okay, check and handle it. Grab it. Well, at least your computer expert has narrowed down the area so I can concentrate rescue units and generators.
Anything worth stealing in here?
Mostly office towers. A lot of banks, but banks self-seal when they lose their electricity.
Most of the stores in the area have gates.
The one's worth breaking into.
Well, it's unlikely that anybody go to this much trouble for a smash and grab, but could you put as many of your officers into the area as possible, cover every possible location?
Thank you. Police dispatched to the blackout area arrested several would-be looters, including 2 men loading paintings from an art gallery into an armored truck. Brzezinski was certain they'd had previous knowledge of the power outage. They were too well prepared for this to be a coincidence. He asked to interview one of the men.
Tell me about Bernard Poston.
I don't know any Bernard.
Oh, you don't? Well, he's the guy who put the lights out for you.
My friend, we got you on burglary charges. That's a fact. But that's nothing if the city goes dark and people die because of it.
What's that got to do with me? Why don't you go find your friend Bernard?
It's got everything to do with you. You ever hear a conspiracy? partner's been singing like a jaybird in the next room. Now, where do you think that's going to leave you?
Fine. Have it your way. Your partner talks, your partner walks. Okay.
I had him in the gym mill. He said he ran the power company.
Go on.
He said he could turn off all the city lights.
And
I told him if I knew when the power would go off, I could make us a lot of money.
he said he knew it.
But he didn't want the money. He said he just wanted to nail the company.
Where does he live?
Bernard Poston?
Yes?
Secret Service, we'd like to ask you a few questions.
May I see your identification, please? Closer? Closer, please. Thank you.
Mr. Poston!
Too tight.
We're not playing games anymore, Mr. Poston.
Drop kick that fruitcake to Soldier Field! Who you guys? Let's get your way out of here! Step back. Open the gate. Now!
Initially, Poston refused to cooperate. He was arrogant, bragging to the agents and police about his intelligence. Brzezinski realized this man could have blacked out the state if he wanted to, but he didn't. He wanted someone to try and stop him and fail.
Come on, Bernard. Tell us how to disarm the bomb.
No. Millions of people will be affected by this, Bernard. Some of them may die.
What do I care?
Okay. You're smarter than all of us. We admit it. Now we're talking about a lot of people being badly hurt by this game.
People never cared about me. I'm Weird Bernard. But I designed the program that runs that plant. I'm the reason people have lights in their homes, watch their TVs, and cook their meals. And what did it get me? You'll never stop my logic, Bud. Never.
Get him out of here.
Agent Brzezinski now knew the only hope for stopping a blackout rested with Ed Greenstone.
Must be something we can do. We can't just let it blow.
Why not? The logic bomb is going to overload the power grid unless we turn the system off ourselves.
Are you out of your mind? We erase the operating system. It'll take us a week to reprogram it.
Yeah, we're not going to erase it. What's the first thing you teach people about computers?
Look, there's no time for 20 questions.
They have two kinds of memory. What's in there when you turn them on and what you put in while you're working with them.
So?
So if you don't save what you put in before you turn the machine off, it's gone. It doesn't remember because you haven't saved the new information in the permanent memory.
Look, really,
These computers are never switched off. Now, the logic bomb couldn't be in the permanent memory or we'd have discovered it with a diagnostic check. It's never been saved. With a computer that's never turned off, it doesn't need to be.
You mean we black out the city ourselves?
This guy Bernard is smarter than us. He knew that we'd get so concentrated on saving the power supply that we'd never conceive of cutting it off ourselves.
You think it'll work?
Do we have a choice?
Let's give it a try.
Brzezinski called the chief, who put his officers on alert. Fire crews were sent out and ready to act on a moment's notice. The hospital staff's prepared to meet any emergency. Everything that could be done in the time that they had was done. And now all they could do was pray their last hope worked.
The police are ready to go.
It'll take about 20 minutes for the system to come to a complete halt.
Okay, we just have to wait.
As the agents watched the computer system shutting down, they knew it was their last hope of avoiding a tragedy. If they failed, they knew Poston's mission of revenge had succeeded.
The lights went out, and the city held its breath. 6 million people wondering what had gone wrong, and a handful praying they could make it right again.
Right.
We got power on the primary grid.
Downtown core coming online.
It's gone. The virus is gone.
Back in business, people. Good luck.
Because of the Secret Service, no one died. And no one knew how close their city had come to crippling chaos or potential mass destruction. Bernard Poston was sent for a psychiatric assessment and ordered held for treatment. He has not yet been released.
Kelly LeBrock reveals the essence of man.
Hard to define, easy to know. It's in the way he holds a drink, the way he wears his clothes, the way he talks, the way he walks, the way he smiles, looks, and kisses. And when he holds you close, it's in the way he smells. Brute, the essence of man. Come on, put it on.
Ah, the sounds of summer.
Two pizzas, two crazy bread in this jug with Kool-Aid for $8.98. It's Little Caesars.
Picnic, picnic.
Help me put this away.
Real country biscuits.
And country crock.
Real country taste.
This is helping?
You said put the country crock away.
Come spread real country taste with fewer calories and no cholesterol. Shed Spread Country Crock. It is the taste of the country.
It's an all-new unsolved mystery. The strange case of the missing minister. Untangle the bizarre clues and help bring him home. An all-new unsolved mystery, NBC Wednesday. They called him Kramer, the coolest cat in Hollywood. Until he was busted. Busted for murder.
Jerry, George!
Now they're teamed with the cops to save Kramer's keister. Police action on an all-new Seinfeld LA adventure. NBC Wednesday.
In the weeks to come on Secret Service, more real-life dramas based on actual cases. A government diplomat, a victim of terrorism.
I will be safe if the bombs are dead.
You're gonna find out what it's like to be on the wrong side of an international incident.
A madman kidnapping innocent women.
Nobody moves, nobody dies.
So close these guys, I could taste them.
Secret Service, drop it! Drop it! On the ground!
I want them bad.
One of the biggest busts in counterfeiting history.
$18 million in counterfeit money. Where's it all going?
This is some of the most detailed work I've seen in a long time.
Secret Service, you're under arrest.
We will continue to take you inside America's most elite organization. Never before told stories based on actual cases from their files, brought to you for the first time ever. The series continues. Secret Service, Sundays at 7, 6 Central on NBC.
A 1 hour Powers That Be special NBC Monday.
With the benefit of public participation, we recently completed our new least cost energy plan. Because Oregon's electricity supplies are already tight, our plan calls for the use of all of our existing power sources, including the Trojan plant, over the next few years. But in addition, to meet our customers' growing needs, we'll expand our energy efficiency programs. We'll develop new power sources, including renewable resources like geothermal and wind. And we'll work with local employers to develop cogeneration facilities. These new energy sources, combined with increased energy efficiency, will allow us to phase out the Trojan nuclear plant in 4 years in an orderly manner while saving costs. We believe this responsible plan will provide our customers with reliable energy at the lowest cost. For more information, please call us.
TV's top dogs paying their dues Monday at 6:30.
There is Leon. The Eagle has landed.
Trapped.
They're still hanging on for their lives.
Good evening, I'm Patrick Van Horn. This is Eyewitness Video. Everywhere we look today, in banks, in stores, at work, even at home, video cameras are looking back at us. For better or worse, they have become a powerful force in our lives. Tonight, we explore that power in 5 eyewitness video stories.
Ladies and gentlemen, the bucket machine.
A rodeo accident provides powerful video ammunition for animal activists.
When he went down like that, the only thing I thought was, just keep the camera steady.
A grade school taken hostage by a gunman. He bargains for lives with a videotape.
He says, I could shoot all 32 of y'all in 2.5 seconds with this machine gun.
Learn a lesson in solving crime from a young man with a camcorder.
I guess that video camera became my little private investigator.
Witness nature out of control in an unforgettable moment of terror.
It sounded like a freight train coming down the street. It was just a huge roar.
This guy's drunk.
But first, a man who some call a video vigilante. He uses the power of video to stop drunk drivers.
So if people want to call me a vigilante, go ahead. But the drunken driver has to be removed from the highways.
I got him on videotape, too.
There is a killer loose on our highways. He's armed and dangerous. His weapon, a car. The trigger, alcohol. Nearly 20,000 Americans were killed in drunk driving accidents last year. Dr. Louis Greenwald of Chicago is determined to change that statistic. His weapon, a camcorder.
He is weaving in between the lanes. He's going back and forth between the white lines. been on the shoulder already. About 10 years ago, I saw my wife and son hit by a drunken driver.
My son and I were in my car, and he and my daughter were in the car behind us.
And I saw their car broadsided by a truck.
By the time I realized that I had been hit, I knew that I was okay. So it was much more frightening for them.
Ever since then, I've been trying to make a difference in this problem. State Police, we got a drunk driver out here. Green Cadillac all over the road. When I go out looking for drunken drivers, I feel like I'm on a mission and that I'm going to find one. If one's out there, I'll find him. The video camera is very important because it offers evidence that's almost irrefutable. And it's evidence that drunk drivers cannot fight. State Police, we got a drunk driver out here, northbound Kennedy, coming up to Hamlin in a Cadillac, all over the road. Any State Police have a copy? When I first saw the Cadillac tailgating and braking excessively, I knew immediately that this was a very, very dangerous driver. He's going to hit the median right now. He was exhibiting so much poor driving that I just knew a crash was going to occur. Yeah, I reported that Cadillac. He's in real bad shape. That Cadillac just hit the median. I think we got a major accident here. I stopped the car and expected to find dead bodies thrown all about. I've been following him. He's drunk. As it turned out, the driver was very lucky and was not killed.
This guy almost went over there. Did you get it?
Yeah,
I got him on tape.
I started using the video camera about 2 years ago. In case there was any lawsuit, I would have evidence to prove that they were drunk or exhibiting signs of drunkenness.
I know it's an unusual response to a problem, but I think many times problems don't get solved unless somebody's willing to go out there and try something unusual.
What I do is try to anticipate where the driver's going and sort of get ahead of him by 3 or 4 miles. Yeah, I'm following looks like it could be a drunken driver on 45 going by J&L toward. A few years ago, I was out on patrol and I was on my way home and I noticed a car on a 2-lane road weaving all over the road. Been on the shoulder 4 times. He's gone 60 miles an hour to 45, Port Clinton right now. I immediately picked up my phone to report this as a possible intoxicated driver. Yeah, I'm found a real bad drunk driver. I'm north of 60 now on 20. I called Libertyville Police Department approximately 4 minutes before I even got to Libertyville. He's going 70 miles an hour.
And it was obvious to me that he was following somebody that he thought was going to kill somebody on the road. So I dispatched it immediately.
He's totally on the curb now. This guy's in very bad shape. He was just totally on the curb.
When we have somebody following a drunk driver reporting that this is happening at this actual time, we consider it a very urgent call.
Totally on the curb again, next to a car. He's going to wipe out. I don't think this guy's going to make it. He's by the Ford dealer right now.
I stayed on the phone with him so that I could keep track of where the drunk driver was at.
Passing a squad the other way, passing a squad the other way.
He told me when he could see the officers coming towards him, and he told me that he was flashing his lights.
I'm hitting my brakes now. When you're following a drunk driver, the best thing you can see are police cars. I'm hitting my brakes. Because you know within a short period of time, the drunk driver's going to be stopped. And that's the whole purpose, to get the drunk driver stopped.
When Mr. Greenwald told me that he had this driver on videotape, my first thought was, this is going to be great in court.
I got him on videotape, too.
There's no way that this man will get away with this.
When the court date came due, we were told that the offender was pleading guilty, that it was not even going to go to trial.
When I make a call to the police, I want to be absolutely sure in my mind that the car in question is being driven by an intoxicated driver. So I look for a lot of signs. There's some lateral motion there. I'm following a possible drunken driver. I'm on the northbound toll road. Guys all over the road. It's a small pickup.
Just because someone calls in and says that someone is doing something, we will not take action on that alone.
Here's a cop right here.
We must see some type of violation in order to make a traffic stop and then to check the person out further.
All right, they got probable cause on them right now. When I saw the trooper put the drunken driver through the field sobriety test, it reinforced in my mind that this driver was intoxicated. Had a lot of difficulty in walking in a straight line. He also had difficulty in standing on one leg for short periods of time.
This is a perfect example of the good work that Dr. Greenwald does of making an apprehension on a drunken driver that normally we wouldn't be able to make because we weren't anywhere near the location when the call came in.
I have a lot of mixed feelings when I see somebody arrested and placing handcuffs. I wish they had not driven drunk, of course, but at the same time, it is very satisfying to me to know that a very dangerous person was removed from the public highways at that point.
I don't think of my husband as a vigilante in any way, although that term is used often by the press. I don't think it's any different than a person who sees a house being robbed. You wouldn't see a house being robbed and just drive by and not call the police.
If more people had videos on the street, I'm sure it would make our job a little bit easier because any extra evidence that you have on any case is always a benefit.
Thanks for coming so fast.
No problem. I was only about 2 miles behind you.
Yeah.
Do me a
There
favor.
will be a time when citizens who are just driving in everyday business will have video cameras on their cars as an extra added safety device. We have a drunk driver northbound.
In the 10 years since Dr. Greenwald began his video campaign against drunk drivers, he's assisted police in more than 500 arrests. Some critics, however, say that this video vigilante should leave law enforcement solely in the hands of the law. When we come back, the powerful video that moved a city to effectively ban rodeos. Stay with us.
We know it moves you. We know it drives you. You got the love? Now where are you gonna get the shoes? At Foot Locker, we've got above-the-rim shoes from Reebok. You got the love, we got the shoes. Foot Locker, where it all begins.
For years, Pledge has kept our furniture beautiful. Well, now Pledge does even more. With a special dust-resistant formula called Dust Block, now Pledge actually repels dust. 2 weeks ago, I polished the word Pledge into this table. Watch. Pledge repels over half the dust I'd get just dry dusting. Pledge knows our lives are a lot busier these days. But with Pledge with Dust Block, they're a little easier, too.
Pledge with Dust Block. It actually repels dust. From SC Johnson Wax.
It's a whole new NBC.
Monday, the Fresh Prince Blossom Hour is back. First, the Fresh Prince takes it on the chin from Cosby's Raven Simone. Then on an all-new Blossom, Dad and Vinny face off, and Joey has something to say about it.
No, maybe he just thought you had me.
He's got a point. That's his head.
Fresh Prince Blossom Hour, NBC Monday. It's an all-new unsolved mystery. The strange case of the missing minister. Untangle the bizarre clues and help bring him home. An all-new unsolved mystery, NBC Wednesday.
If we hadn't been there with the camera and the videotape, it would have never happened, you see, because they would have just denied it.
Animal rights people, I think, basically are well-intentioned people that just don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Rodeos. Some say they capture the spirit of the Wild West, but animal rights activists claim it's a mean spirit. In Pittsburgh, 2 people set out with a camcorder to prove that claim. What they capture on tape is so powerful, it moves a community to action. A warning, parts of this video may be difficult to watch.
Here he comes.
Everybody wanted to be a cowboy when I was a kid, and everybody else grew out of it. I just never did, I guess.
We were looking forward to going to Pittsburgh. It was the final stop of a 40-city rodeo tour. We knew that there hadn't been a rodeo in Pittsburgh in a long time. We were really looking forward to an exciting show and a good time for everybody.
And at that point, we decided we were going to try and do something about that. And we started out with an idea of protesting so that people that were coming at least would maybe try and see it from a viewpoint of the suffering that's involved in making these animals perform.
What is about to take place inside this arena today is animal abuse in the name of entertainment.
I love animals. I mean, you couldn't be in this business and have to do business with over 100 head of livestock on a weekly basis and not love animals.
I think rodeo is more dangerous to the animals than Ed Peck or other rodeo promoters would like the public to believe.
These well-intentioned people carry their signs that don't know what they're talking about. I think the majority of them are women, and they've henpecked their husbands to the point of where they can't fight back no longer. So they say, let's go to the rodeo and let's pick at them cowboys because they're tough and they're strong. They'll fight back.
Here's Cowboy got a catch. He was off the right side. Now he's got
We came up with the idea that we have this video camera that my parents had just purchased. Let's videotape this. Let's document what happens in here.
And I invited them to stay, knowing that they had a video camera with them. But of course, I had no reason to think that I had anything to hide or that they were going to see anything that I wouldn't personally think was very exciting and very entertaining.
attention. Steers 7, the Cowboys nothing.
One of my goals was to try and record to the best of my ability what was happening with the animals.
Time for that Cowboy, 7.21 seconds. Boy, that just puts him out of the money, just out of the money.
Looking through the lens of that camera, the video camera, I went through a number of different emotions. Part of it was like a sick feeling in my stomach, like I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Has to get that calf to his feet. Now he's got to plank him to the ground. Lift, Cowboys, got him down. Now pivot, string arm, back two together. Now wrap 1, 2, 3, and pull it through.
We proceeded to basically try to record the events that took place that day. Sandy was down observing from her vantage point and taking notes.
Well, as you look at the tape, you'll see the horse in the chute preparing to leave the chute with the rider on his back. And there's a man holding on to the end of the leather strap that tightens the flank strap around the groin area of the horse, which this causes a lot of pressure to a very sensitive area of the horse, and it causes the horse to buck.
All a flank does is tickle them. It takes the fact that they're going to buck anyway and just makes them kick higher, and that's all that it does. They're all sheepskin lined. They're all powdered with baby powder. It doesn't hurt them in any way. It enhances the showiness of the buck. You've seen their tape. Just look at this tape. You can see these are one field where we keep some of our bucking horses here. Nice lush grass. There's 3 creeks in this pasture. There's shade trees on it. These animals work about 8 seconds a weekend. They don't work more than 5 weekends a year. I think they got a pretty cushy job.
It's a sunshiny afternoon in Pittsburgh, and it's Saturday Night Fever in shoot time.
If you watch the tape, you can see the use of the electric prod. You'll see it sitting on the top of the rail, and you see the woman with long blonde hair reaching up and basically raking it over the hind end of the animal. You can watch on the videotape and watch the mouth of the animal. He's literally foaming and frothing at the mouth.
There's very little juice in there. It's only a 9-volt battery. That's all that operates that thing. It's not like they're hooked to 220 volts that burns them or scars them or anything. All it does is just lets them know that there's something there and makes them move.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you will turn your attention once again to the bucking shoes, it's time for the Cowboys Wild Bull Ride.
The bull riding event was the very final event, and that was the event where we got the very dramatic and tragic videotape of this massive animal, going down.
Number 4, ladies and gentlemen, the bucking machine.
He leaps out of the gate and he bucks once, and it's almost like in slow motion. The animal goes down and his chin goes and he hits the floor.
Get up, Chico, get up!
I could hear the bone break, and I could see the bull go down, and I could hear the rodeo promoter sort of in jest, get up, get up.
When he went down like that, the only thing I thought was, just keep the camera steady. He suffered alone, standing out there in the middle of that arena for 45 minutes that we know of, at least, before somebody put a bullet into his head.
I have a veterinarian at every one of my rodeo performances. Unfortunately, when this isolated incident happened in Pittsburgh, the veterinarian was called out on an emergency call, was not physically at the location of the rodeo.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to remind you that we do have an on-call veterinarian, and they are getting in touch with that lady right now. We'll take that.
If we hadn't been there with the camera and the videotape, it would have never happened, you see, because they would have just denied it.
Quite honestly, the worst feeling that I take away from this is not video cameras. It hurts my heart to think that these people think that I don't care about animals.
You'll receive nothing but the best of care.
We got together with Councilman Michael Coyne, and he immediately said, I will sponsor this ordinance that would prohibit the abuse of rodeo animals.
It struck my heart that this was something that was unjust. We really don't need this in our society. The videotape was very helpful in persuading other council members that this was an ordinance that was needed in the city of Pittsburgh. Besides outlawing bucking straps and electronic prodding devices, it requires a humane agent to be on site and a veterinarian to be there all the time.
He's a councilman in a city. There are no ranchers or farmers in Pittsburgh, so he took the easy way out. These people came and said, we don't want any rodeos, and he said, okay.
This is the first time in local history, or maybe even the state of Pennsylvania history, where a videotape has caused an ordinance to go into effect.
So we're going to shoot 2 action. And Kool-Aid!
We made a difference by putting a law on the books in the city of Pittsburgh that says, guess what, guys? You can't electric shock bulls in their chutes. You can't kick horses with sharpened spurs. You can't use a flank strap to make it buck wildly. The camera doesn't lie. The videotape doesn't lie, because there it is in color.
Coming up on Eyewitness Video, a young man uses a camcorder to catch a thief. But first, a gunman takes an entire grade school hostage, and a videotape means the difference between life and death. We'll be right back.
Kelly LeBrock reveals the essence of man.
Hard to define, easy to know. It's in the way he holds a drink, the way he wears his clothes, the way he talks, the way he walks, the way he smiles, looks, and kisses. And when he holds you close, it's in the way he smells. Brute, the essence of man. Come on, put it on.
We've got a bit of an edge with the driver we have. We've got the best driver out there. So it's a matter of the mechanics just not overlooking anything. Al and I stay in constant communication during the race. I have to be aware of what he wants or needs, at all times. I think the small details are is what makes the difference between winning and running second.
If you've got a lot of house to cover on a limited budget, get to Sears Whole House Paint Sale. Pick up Weather Beater Exterior Flat or Easy Living Interior Low Luster Semi-Gloss. Your choice, only $12.99 a gallon. And Easy Living Flat or Soft White Ceiling Paint, both only $10.99 a gallon. So get to the Whole House Paint Sale today and save money at Sears.
You can count on me, Sears, Roebuck and Company.
Tuesday, a tragic accident changes Sam's life.
I'm your guardian angel.
Is it a miracle?
You can see him.
Oh, it's hard to miss in that monkey suit.
Or madness?
You're the one that needs the help. You better watch it, Chico. I know the boss.
It's Quantum Leap's new night.
It's okay. You cannot hurt me.
Now, Tuesday at 7 Central on NBC.
A hate group, a legacy of murder, and the woman who will put them behind bars could be the next to die. Reasonable Doubts, now Tuesday at 9, 8 Central on NBC.
He just kept saying, "Lady, do as I say and no one will get hurt."
February 2nd, 1988. The students and teachers of West End Christian School in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, are taken hostage by a man wielding a rifle. Outside the school, video cameras record the drama as it unfolds. Inside, the gunman makes his demands, which include an unprecedented use of video. Video with the power to save the lives of those trapped inside.
The door was kicked open and the gun was in his belt and the Magnum was in his hand. Things were very confused. I mean, the children were crying.
I made the decision to sacrifice my life if I had to.
It was the police dispatcher that I heard saying, you know, there's a man inside Weston Christian School with a gun.
I kept saying to him, "Get out of here with those guns. You should not be in here with guns, and you must go away."
He had her arm twisted and she was looking toward me, and she fell down on her knees and said, "This is for real, get the police."
I was forced into the classroom at gunpoint.
We were all scared that he was going to shoot us, so we got down on our knees in front of our desks so that they could block the shots if he started firing.
I just turned around and locked the door. And I told the children, we're just going to be very, very quiet.
We were just rolling tape, and, you know, one of the situations where roll your tape now and you can find out what's happening later.
Mr. Harvey kept saying, "Don't you know this is a gun? Don't you know it's loaded?"
He told us about hollow point bullets, that they could go into you small and make a big hole out the back.
He says, if y'all don't start being behave and doing what I ask you to do, I could shoot all 32 of y'all in 2.5 seconds with this machine gun.
Now the word is starting to spread. Parents are coming to me saying, "We've got to get in there and get our children out." And I distinctly remember one mother running down the street in almost hysteria saying, "My son's in that building." And I think that's when it began to hit me that my children were in there too.
This is not a criminal act, this is a political act. And I want people to know.
None of us had any idea what the man wanted or what was unfolding on the inside.
Where's this country going to be 5 years, 10 years from now? Is there going to be a country?
There was a lot of crying in there. Miss Blanton came to each student one at a time and prayed with us and told us it would be all right.
How many trees have they kept with these? I have kept my word.
He said that this was a political statement, that he expected to get attention from Washington, perhaps national TV coverage.
This country is falling down. The fabric of this country is just absolutely falling apart. And nobody's doing anything about it, so I took it.
Instead of spending all this money on the Super Bowl and publicity and everything for it, he said, why not give some money to the poor? And
the children were saying, "Well, we give to UNICEF. We're only in 3rd grade. What else can we do?"
Tell all the reporters out there that this is strictly a political act, not a criminal act.
Somebody shouted my name, and they said, "This man inside wants to see you."
He requested that Dan come there. He felt like that if somebody was there videotaping it or whatever, I think he saw that as some protection for himself.
After I said yes, they gave me some instructions. Hold your hands out. Don't make any sudden moves. I felt a sense of fear that I had never felt as a journalist.
Things were very confused at that time, and the children were crying.
Harvey said, Dan, you know, I know you. I watch you on TV. I want you to be my messenger.
I know what I'm doing. I really know what I'm doing. I know you do. I know what I'm doing, too.
He said he had a message for the parents. He says, I am basically a good person, but I care about these kids as much as they do, and he does not want to hurt them.
Okay, let me tell you what I'm asking for. What I want the governor to do is to give me a pardon. I want him to do a video.
The children were, at times, very frightened.
I just started crying right then. I said, Miss Blank, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's he going to do to us?
Angela was so distressed, and she was crying louder than the other children.
Hey, y'all going to have to be very quiet. Y'all be very, very quiet.
Finally, it got on his nerves, I guess, enough to where he said, okay, you can go.
I want immunity, and I want a pardon.
Robert Prince had been called in to, quote, be James Harvey's attorney.
When I first came to the door, he asked me about immunity or pardon, and I told him, Bud, under these circumstances, immunity or a pardon from any government official may or may not be good. It was as though I never said that.
Why can't they do a video and take it to the TV station and show it?
Harvey told me, you go out and you tell them outside that I want a videotape from the governor. And this thing isn't going to be over until I see that.
I got to see it some way or another. We get that sense.
At times he would become very calm and talk to you, and then again he would become very reactive to something that you might say.
I told you I had to do this. I had to do it. And I've been on you, and you told me you was the man of your word.
I heard Ken Swindle tell him that right down the hall there was a first grade class, and they were just little babies, and that he needed to let them go.
Just go ahead, come on now. It's okay. That's all right.
Oh, it was just such a feeling of relief to know that we were free.
The children still being held hostage are said to be 3rd and 4th graders. Most of their parents are here. They're gathered in the
This thing had been going on for a long time, and I was beginning to think, are we going to get out of here before the night's over? Are we going to get out? Or is he just going to end it right here by shooting us all?
What did I ask? What did I ask you to do?
Mr. Harvey was getting very upset with the police because of their reluctance to fulfill his demands.
For me, that's not acceptable. I'm telling you right now, it's not
The negotiations broke down because the governor of the state didn't send a full pardon on tape to the gunman.
Going up there and address the legislature or these kids right here.
As the day progressed, that just seemed to be the only thing that was on his mind, the only thing that would get him out of the building.
I knew that it was possible to get a videotape, but I knew from the moment the word pardon was ever mentioned that the pardon from the governor would not be a valid pardon.
We finally got word the governor's videotape was on its way.
The children were asking me, are we going to spend the night? What are we going to do here? And I was wondering the same thing.
The state trooper negotiators came to me and said if the tape had arrived, we want you in front of the building taping when all this takes place.
Okay, just very carefully, all right?
I could almost hear my heart beating because I knew this was it. You know, good or bad, whatever was going to happen was about to happen.
I believe the time was around 8. And as he was coming in, he dropped the VCR. And it had taken all day to get it. He said, "Oh, I think it's going to work," and he put the tape in. Well, the light came on and the numbers started, but the tape wasn't doing anything.
See if you will have them to get another VCR.
We got a screwdriver out of my desk drawer and we took the thing apart and got the tape out. It didn't take very long to get another VCR in there, not near as long as it took to get the first one. Another man brought this VCR in and started the tape.
To the fullest extent that I'm authorized under the Constitution and laws of the state of Alabama, I, Governor Guy Hunt, do hereby grant a full pardon and do hereby grant immunity to James L. Harvey for the acts committed.
He was really relieved. I mean, he thought, good, it's all over. That's what it really looked like on his face.
February the 2nd, 1988, Guy Hunt, Governor.
Mr. Hunt, on the VCR, held up this piece of paper that he had signed and showed it to all of us. And I didn't remember a word he said. As soon as it was over, Mr. Prince, the lawyer, said, "Now, is that what you wanted to hear?" And Mr. Harvey said, "Yes. Can we leave now?"
All right, turn your cameras on. Me and him fix to come outside, okay? Here's the gun case for this.
Once the video was played, you could see that he felt at that time we had done what he'd asked.
You ready? I'm ready.
He started putting his guns down, and we all lined up behind him at the front door.
Okay, look this second.
He said to Ken Swindle, "Do you want to search me?" Harvey thought he was walking across the street with the children to go to a press conference.
Get you in trouble. One in my belly. God, oh God, please. Please, God. Oh my God. God. Hey, you joking me? You promised me, sir. You promised me. God. I don't have another hand. I'm not going to do anything. Y'all don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me. Just let me go. Please, sir, don't. You promised me. You promised me.
I, James Harvey, have never been in prison or never been arrested before February the 2nd, 1988. But I never stood up for anything either in my whole life. It started when I started looking at the world and realizing that mankind is destroying it right before your very eyes. I used guns to be taken seriously. If I'd have went there with nothing, who would have taken me seriously?
I didn't want to hurt anybody, don't you understand?
It had absolutely nothing to do with West End Christian School. It had nothing to do with those particular children. It had to do with every child upon the face of this earth today.
Right over that way.
When it finally ended, for everybody, I think it was just such a big sense of relief. We were all soaking wet and dirty and hungry and tired. But finally, we could begin to put this behind us.
The first person I went looking for was my parents. It was real good. We just wanted to get home and get some good sleep.
I feel that the video was the one and only reason that we were released that night. There is a verse in the 16th chapter, I think, of Matthew that says that the guardian angels of children are always before God's face. Our guardian angels were working overtime that day.
James Harvey is currently serving a 99-year sentence for kidnapping. He'll be eligible for parole in February 2003. Later on Eyewitness Video, the power of nature captured on tape. But first, how one man used a camcorder as a silent watchdog and caught a thief.
It kills germs just like it always did. It fights plaque and the gum disease gingivitis just like it always did. Now it does one thing it never did. Introducing Cool Mint Listerine. With an exhilarating, cool, minty taste. New Cool Mint Listerine Antiseptic. Works like Listerine, tastes like cool mint.
When the leaders of the church were as powerful as gods,
the ocean sea cannot be crossed.
He seduced a queen and commanded a crew of murderers and thieves on the most dangerous journey ever undertaken. Alexander Salkind presents Marlon Brando, Tom Selleck, George Corofas, Rachel Ward, Christopher Columbus, The Discovery, directed by John Glenn, and Alexander and Ilya Salkind production. Discover the world, August 21st. Rated PG.